Yeah, I think everything looks good. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, today on the show, we have Nick Niehaus with Business Video School. Let me tell you more about Nick. Now, Nick Niehaus is the co-founder and head trainer at Business Video School. He has spent the last 6 years working with thousands of real estate agents to help them overcome the challenges of transitioning to video communication and marketing. In doing so, Nick has become an expert at helping let me repeat that last sentence there. I screwed up. In doing so, Nick has become an expert at helping small business owners gain confidence on camera and learn how to use video to grow their business through branding. Please, everyone, go to visit Nick's website, which is bizvideoschool.com. Biz is B-I-Z, bizvideoschool.com. Link to that in the show notes. Nick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. Thanks for having me on.
Very excited to chat with you. The world's really changed a lot. Well, obviously, the world's always changing, but certainly with the advent 3 years ago, with when COVID hit and we were doing work from home, I saw a shift in realtors really probably more out of desperation than anything, but just embracing some of the video conferencing technology, more video production when it comes to social media. And I've seen agents continue to evolve their video practices. Even now we're largely back to normal and we're moving around and about, of course. I'm still seeing that trend continue. Obviously, the rise of TikTok has also increased the popularity of video. But I am so excited to have you on the show because I want to talk all things video. This is something that I think every one of our listeners or viewers can relate to and try to figure out as they determine what they want to spend their time and energy on in 2023. I think video is a great skill that really anyone can develop, and obviously you teach people how to do that. So excited to have you on.
Awesome. Yeah. No, and I love talking about this stuff. It's the pandemic certainly sort of accelerated and disrupted all kinds of stuff with video. So it's been an interesting 3 years.
Well, let's talk about the role of video. So first, let's get into your background before we actually start giving suggestions to agents. So what brought you into this space?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been, so I actually, when I went to college, I started working as a freshman for a company called College Works Painting. I ended up working there for 6 years. And in that experience, like you basically, you run a small painting business, kind of like an internship program. And so that was my first experience with marketing, which I'll sort of put quotes around because there was a lot of door knocking, just going out, knocking on doors, putting flyers out, all that stuff. And it's going a ways back at this point. But the reason I bring that up is because I basically have been working in marketing ever since. And so it's something that I've been good at in some areas, really bad at in others. What happened, though, is I actually started a company. Man, it's been almost 8 years, I think, at this point. And what we did is we would put out flyers for other businesses, right? So we got working with real estate agents as a result of that because of the concept of farming. We had this cool sticky flyer you could like stick right in the middle of a front door. Very, eye got kind of catching. And so we started working with them. We started doing this farming stuff. And that was probably about 6 years ago. And that was right when video was really starting to emerge as a marketing tool for small businesses. And so there was kind of this big kind of moment in time where you could start to run your own Facebook video ads. You could start to run YouTube ads. And very few small businesses were even kind of aware of these possibilities. And so we kind of went to these agents we were working with doing these flyers. And part of it was we didn't want to be out there, putting flyers on doors for the rest of our lives. We're like, well, what can we do that's a little bit more sustainable? And so we started making videos with them and bringing them into our studio and coaching them on camera. And, a lot of it ended up being sort of psychological stuff, getting over that fear of the camera, getting over their, qualms about seeing themselves on that video screen. And then 3 years ago, right around the beginning of the pandemic, actually a little before that, we started to realize, hey, these people are coming. We're making a video with them. You think this would kickstart this sort of brand effort? Hey, I'm going to use video everywhere. I'm going to start, sending my clients video messages. I'm going to start making social media videos, and it wasn't happening, and that's what kind of led us to saying, well, there's a gap here. There's something people are missing. Are they misunderstanding? How to use video? Is it the technical steps? And the more research we did, it was sort of all of it. And we said, okay, well, we need to build a training program for this. We need to start teaching people how to use this new form of communication, which is the way that we saw it. And so timing, it worked out perfect because we built a course and piloted it. We launched that December of 2019. And so like within 3 months, the pandemic swept the country. And I mean, literally we got shut down. We weren't allowed to make videos with people for a couple months. And that was a forced pivot, obviously, but we sort of
Sure.
immediately said, all right, let's start doing this training. We got this course. Let's see what we can do. We brought some partners in. And I think we had 900 people come through that first course within about 3 months, So it was like,
Wow.
okay, there's clearly a need for what we're doing here. And we've just been kind of running ever since.
I That's amazing. I remember back really before video was so prevalent in social media in particular, when you would go to do anything in video, they would typically ask you, "Have you been media trained?" Right? That was the
Oh,
old
right.
the old sort of skill set that have you been in front of a camera before? This is
Right.
really before we all just had high definition cameras in our pockets that could take almost comparable shots with these $20,000 cameras. And
Hmm.
so it used to be a thing where you were like, no, you really do need to get trained. You need to know what to say and what not to say. And you still do need to get trained. But thankfully, the barrier to entry obviously is, your phone, which
It's
everyone
gone. Yeah.
has. And so I think first, what would probably make the most sense for our audience is let's make the case for video. And when we talk about
Sure.
video, let's define what we're talking about. Um,
Hmm.
why should realtors be focused on video this year?
Yeah, and I love that question because I think, a lot of folks, they get into tactics or strategy way too fast. In a lot of these
Yeah.
conversations, they go straight to like, all right, what kind of video should I make? And that was one thing that stood out to me when we first started the school and we started looking into, hey, what exists out there is that a lot of the recorded presentations, a lot of the top, stuff people were talking on was just so far down the path in our eyes. It was sort of like, hey, they're skipping a lot of steps here, and no wonder people
Right.
are thinking they should do these things, but they're not taking action because they're overwhelmed, they're confused. It's kind of the byproduct of the way it's being talked about. So yeah, I think it's taking a step back and asking ourselves like, well, what is it? What is video, right? I mean, so that's where I start. It's like in my mind, video is a form of communication, and I think it's important to see it that way because everything we do to communicate with someone remotely, right? So if I'm going to send a text, an email, used to be sending letters. We don't do much of that anymore, but letters, all that kind of stuff. It was all kind of created to supplement or sort of replace a face-to-face conversation, right? So the only reason we ever do any of these other kinds of communication is because we can't be physically face-to-face with that other person, right? So if
Right.
we sort of say, okay, well, ideally I get into the same room, I'm sitting across from the table, we all know that when we're in that context, we're able to build relationships the most effectively. We're able to close deals at the highest rate. All of that stuff is kind of maximized. Well, that's what video simulates better than anything else. So when we compare it to a phone call, all this kind of stuff, the only form of communication we have available that feels as close to a face-to-face conversation is clearly video, right? And that has a ton to do with trust. So when I can see somebody, I mean, there's actually a part of my brain, it's called the fusiform gyrus, that recognizes other people's faces and it stores that information. It tells us, hey, have I seen this person before? There's an element of how many times, right? If it's somebody I've seen a bunch, I automatically trust you because my brain says, hey, this must be somebody who's sort of part of my tribe, right? I see them every
Right.
day or I see them every
They
2 days.
they're safe because I see them visually.
Right.
They're in my
Yeah.
visual space occasionally. Yeah.
Right. And we evolve. I mean, what's interesting is like throughout evolution, like we have not evolved to understand really any of these other forms of communication. So our brains at a fundamental level, when they see a person's face, the only thing that your brain can really understand is that person must be in the room with me.
Right.
So consciously, we know it's not, but most of our brain is non-conscious,
It
right? So
it
we know
sort
there's
of
all those.
it bypasses a little bit of those critical factors of the brain. So when we
Yeah.
we see someone, especially, you're so right because it's not even just face. I think when people are taking full body videos, it's like all of
Hmm.
a sudden we know what their their physical being looks like. And just like we would with an actor or somebody on television,
Mhm.
we feel connected in some small way, consciously or unconsciously, simply because our brain thinks, that yeah, you're right, we're in close proximity with them even though we're not.
Yeah, and that's huge, and it's actually I emphasize this a lot in our trainings when I talk about how you frame yourself in a video, right? So a lot of folks, like if they send a video to somebody, their head is for some reason in the bottom half of the frame. You've probably seen this where it's like
Sure.
vertical video and their head's right down at the bottom and they got a
Yeah.
little space above it, for no reason. And a lot of it's just they don't know how to hold the phone or they feel a little
Sure.
uncomfortable about putting their body out there. But that takes away from that experience, right? So rather like that makes my brain question what's going on. Now I'm kind of like, well, I think I'm talking to this person, but like it's just their head floating there, which is kind of weird, right? So yeah, I think the more any kind of video, I mean this goes for public stuff, it goes for the more intimate one-to-one video messages. You should try to sort of appear like you would in front of that person if you were sitting across the table, right? So you want to
Yeah.
incorporate some of your body, you want to make sure your face is large enough that they can read all your facial expressions. You want to be somewhat careful about lighting, but mostly just so they can clearly see your face. Not because you have to look perfect, but you need to make sure they can see you just like they would if they were face to face. And if you do that, I mean, that it's a game changer, right? I mean, this is like I love sending video messages. Like I love to send people like happy birthday videos, 10 seconds long. It's such a perfect example of this because then they see me, right? They have that sort of mini experience of having this kind of really quick face to face chat, but they remember it for months. I mean, I've had people that I'll send them a birthday video 1 year, and the year later I miss it, and they're sending me a message like, "Hey, where's my birthday video?" Because they remember
Yeah.
it from a year before, right? So there's all that stuff that's going on in the human mind. And the reality is, once you get used to doing this, a lot of people look at video and they're intimidated and they kind of put it off because of that. But once you get used to using, especially video, kind of as a one-to-one or one to just a few people form of communication, it doesn't take any more time, right? So the time it takes to sit in front of a camera and say, hey, let me give you a quick update on the transaction. Here's what's going on. In my experience, it's actually faster than typing it out because I type and I make some mistakes. I got to go fix it. And you got to overthink what you're saying, make sure they don't misinterpret what you wrote. With a video, you don't have to worry about that. People understand it better. We actually comprehend more information when we can watch a person talking versus just reading the text on the screen. So, we could sort of create this huge laundry list of sort of all the benefits for it. But I think at a fundamental level, that's what you have to remind yourself is, hey, it's not always a performance, right? It can be a performance, just like you can write a blog post that might get read by thousands of people, but we can also send a text or an email, right? And we don't overthink those things. We just do it. It's just part of our day-to-day experience. That's where I think people really need to focus on videos. How do you just make it a normal thing you do as part of your day-to-day communication? And if you start there, number one, you see benefits a lot faster. It has an impact immediately. And then you also get so much more comfortable on camera. So when it comes, a few weeks later, a few months later, when you're getting ready to build that YouTube channel or build that TikTok, you're much more comfortable, you're much more confident on camera, and you just move a lot faster because of that. So I think I think a lot of us have sort of mixed that up. We sort of started on the hard end and we need to sort of reset a little bit and come back to the beginning.
Boy, you just said so much, and my brain is spinning a little bit because I was thinking we were going to really pretty much exclusively talk about how to do video better on social media. And you said something, and of course, you do teach that, but
Sure.
you said something that really resonated with me today. Specifically because it's just happened to me just before we started our show. So this is so perfect because you were talking about using video for more regular communication. So
Mhm.
yes, of course, there's a social media sort of strategy there, and
Right.
people. Realtors are always trying to figure out how much of my personal life do I put on display on my Facebook page and Instagram, etc. But you're saying we're really talking about a different thing right now, which I think is really critical because this just happened to me before our show, which was you can send one-to-one messages to people because we think about branding and like I'm going to put this out on
Right.
Facebook, everyone's going to see it. Like you said, thousands of people might read a blog post or see a video, but then there's also one-to-one communication. And I just received, I will tell you, we get pitched by advertisers, guests every single day on our show, publicists, whoever
Right.
reach out, hey, book our guest. I got this has probably happened in 5 years. I've out of thousands of pitches. I've probably had this happen 5 times out of thousands. No joke.
Hmm.
And it was, hey, I made a video for you. I want you to check this out. Now, I didn't know if this was a guest. I didn't know if it was a vendor. I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what it was. Could have been a spam message. I had no idea. But he's like, hey, DJ, or it actually wasn't even meant to me. It's for our producer. But there was like, hey, Zana, check this out. And this guy has this company where he does computerized or robotic handwritten
Hmm.
cards and notes and things. Anyway, and he was like, hey DJ, I want to show this to you. I think this would be a good fit for your show. Now, because I watched his 35-second video where he kind of like, I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I instantly like
Right.
him. And
Hmm.
I don't know anything about him. He might be a horrible human being. He might be
Right.
he might actually not be a good human being. I don't know, but I liked him instantly because he took the time to make a video. I can't even explain why I liked him, but there's this unconscious part of the brain that when you do see somebody, you have a tendency to want to connect with them, and
Right.
so there's a visual component that bypasses even logic. Like, I don't know this guy.
Hmm.
He's just some dude trying to get on my show, which happens all day long. Why do I really want? And by the way, he's not the only person with this exact kind of business. There's lots of businesses that have these robotic things that handwrite things. So it's not
Right.
even a unique value proposition, but for some reason I got so excited that he made me a video. He made me a
Yeah.
video,
Right.
even though it took him probably a minute to do it.
Hmm.
It was crazy effective. Had he had just written me and said, hey, I've got this thing, I probably would have been like, no, we're not
Yeah.
that interested. There is something that lit up my brain automatically. The fact that I got a video message, a one-to-one video message. And I know that isn't necessarily the purpose of our conversation, but it just happened to me and it really affected it affected the way, and
Right.
we were like, I'm like, just book him, immediately book him,
Wow.
just
Yeah.
from that.
No, I mean, and I love that actually. I mean, I think realistically, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about how to do video for social media. I mean, that because there's a whole career of influencer, right? So there's people out there
Sure.
whose job is to grow a following on social media. And I think it's a little bit unfortunate that so many business owners are looking to those people and they're learning about video from them. I mean, there's they're not all bad. It's not a comment that they shouldn't be doing that, but it's a distraction. I think that's the real problem, right? Is that there are, I actually put out a sort of small survey on LinkedIn the other day because I was curious. I was like, well, hey, remember when email first came out? It's been about 30 years at this point, right? But it's like, remember when it first came out? How did you use it initially? Did you send email to a single person at a time? Did you send it to like small groups? Or did you blast out, massive newsletters to thousands of people? And obviously, every single person said, I sent emails to just one person, right?
Yeah.
And we missed that step with video, right? So
Wow.
we got to the yeah. So it's like we started on the other end of the spectrum because, and a lot of it I think is because we all grew up with, I sort of define it as three primary categories of video, maybe just two. Obviously, movies, television, and then some of us home videos, right? So some people will
Sure.
say like, well, one, my dad had a camera and he recorded us all the time. So they were on camera, but it's, very intimate kind of setting. And I think what happened is that a lot of us, as we started to realize, hey, we have cameras in our pockets now, we've got these tools available, we thought about the kinds of video we had the most experience with, right? So of course we sort of immediately went to public facing video, television shows,
Sure.
stuff that thousands,
Polished.
millions of people might see, and talk about intimidating, right? I mean, and I did the same thing. My very first video I ever made, I put on Facebook. I may have even put some money behind it, so it got seen by quite a few people. And it took me months. I mean, I went out and I bought equipment and I set up a little mini studio and all the stuff I tell our students not to do now. I did it, and it took me forever, but I still, I'm a fairly early adopter, so this was still 6 years ago at this point. But yeah, I mean, the further I got into it, the more I realized, like, well, cool, that was great, and if I do that consistently, I can do this branding thing, and that all worked, especially over a long-term period of time. But then I started sending video messages, and that's your example. I've had that happen a bunch of times. I mean, I was a totally new entity in the real estate space because we weren't working with realtors, and we sort of made this pivot into real estate. And for anybody who's ever done that, you kind of know how hard it can be to get through that front door. Obviously real estate agents get pitched all the time. There's all kinds of salespeople trying to sell to them. And so I was sending these video messages to brokers saying, hey, can I come in and do a presentation for your agents and talk about video? And I was putting a video in those emails, and I got booked. I got a lot of doors opened. And, I'd even have people tell me like, this is the most effective cold email I've ever gotten, Now, granted, they've gotten more video emails since then. I'm not the only one doing it in St. Louis at this point. But I think there's another part of this, kind of coming back to your example, that is really urgent, because there's lots of reasons to get started doing this stuff right away. One thing that happens today, though, is that when somebody sees you make them a 30-second video that was just for them, they still have the same reaction of, hey, this feels like television. And so they look at it and they go, I would be too intimidated to do that. So there's that additional layer of sort of like, wow, like, so somebody who's used to making video, it's quicker than writing an email. So for them, they're like literally saving time. And then the recipient is going, oh my gosh, what an impressive effort.
It feels like somebody did something big. Like when
exactly,
I saw this,
right.
this guy was in his warehouse with all of his machines, scribbling with the robotic hands, writing letters. And I was like, wow, look, I'm getting a behind the scenes tour and literally all he did is pull his phone out of his pocket, say, hey, DJ, I think I'd be, you're right. It seemed like a bigger deal to me than the effort that he put in. So the reaction you get is actually amplified more than the effort that's put in theory, right?
Yeah. And obviously, you can't know if that's going to happen with every person. Sure. If you email somebody who's a professional, TV presenter or something, they're not going to be as impressed. But but that is, and that's a big deal. That's especially like and this is why we talk so much about birthday videos, because every single person that gets that video from him, it was so little pressure on your part, right? You can literally go to Facebook on your phone on the app and you get a list of everybody's birthday, and literally next to each name is a messenger button. You click that, now you're in a one-on-one chat with them. And there's also a video recording feature built into the messenger app, so you basically hold a button down, you say a few words and you click send, and you can send 10 of these in like 5 minutes or less. That is, in terms of habits, because obviously everything you want to do, as much of it as possible should become a habit, makes it a lot easier for you. That is a very, very easy habit to form, is every day, as I get my coffee or as I have lunch, or, you tie it to something you're already doing daily, I'm going to pull up my phone, I'm going to look at the list of birthdays, and I'm going to send one to anybody who I want to say that to. You don't have to do it to all your friends. But imagine like somebody's been dragging their feet on making their first video, and they've been building this making it this big mountain that they're having trouble kind of overcoming. Start there. 2 weeks from now, you've made 30 videos. You've increased the awareness with 30 people substantially. You're developing those relationships. You may already have business from that outreach, even though all you're doing is saying happy birthday just from being top of mind. We had an agent pick up like a $3 million listing a few weeks after sending somebody a happy birthday video, right? So you might have results already, and it's like I see people sometimes almost kick themselves because they thought 5 years ago they should start using video, and they spent the past 5 years procrastinating, essentially, right? Sort of finding reasons to keep waiting, and it's harder than I thought. It's intimidating. And then they send these birthday messages and like, wow, I should have started 5 years ago. Like this is not, there's nothing about this that's hard, and it has such an incredible impact, and I think that it just resonates with people. But the urgency I was talking about is that every week, more businesses are doing this, and I think if you do it first in your industry, and the first the customers are kind of getting video messages from you first, the advantage of that, like you're an innovator. This is stuff people go tell their friends about. Wow, you're the hot shot agent in town. If you wait another 6 months, another year, another couple years, there will be other businesses doing it, and now all you're doing is catching up, right? You don't have the innovation, so the benefit's still there, but you don't set yourself apart the same way, right?
Boy, I agree with all of that. I actually think the one-to-one sort of option that we're talking about, one-to-one meaning I'm going to produce a video for one person, in this case, the example of the happy birthday. This is such, I'm only giggling because I think about this. I was thinking about this as you were talking, that every year, of course, I have a birthday, and Facebook tells, the world that it's my birthday, and I get, however many people say happy birthday, and 100 or whatever it is. And It's lovely, and I'm so grateful for that.
Sure.
I get exactly 0 video messages from anybody,
Right.
who say, "Hey, I noticed it was your birthday today. Happy birthday." Even if it was a 15-second message, do I remember who out of those 100 who wrote me on my Facebook page, "Happy birthday"? No, I mean, whatever. It's
Right.
probably the same people every year. I would remember who made me a 15-second video because it would be the only video.
Right.
And you're right. It is a simple and easy thing. And it's also a great way to get introduced to video if you're not comfortable in front of the camera, because there's really nothing
Absolutely.
at stake. You're just being like, "Hey, it's
Yeah.
your birthday. Happy birthday." And that is, and you can use, there's other social media platforms that can be used to prompt things like this. So birthday on
Mhm.
Facebook, absolutely. Like you said, go there every day. Look, first
Yep.
of all, friend everybody on
Right.
Facebook and Instagram, and or Instagram doesn't have birthdays, but or maybe they do, I don't know. But LinkedIn does
Mhm.
something very interesting where they show you when people have work anniversaries. So that's
Right.
another huge opportunity. "Oh, I just saw you, your 5th year at such and such company. Congratulations. Hope you're doing well." Or promotions or new
Mhm.
jobs or, other life events. LinkedIn is really good. So that's another place where you could find reasons to do that one-to-one short video. Boy, we've been doing this podcast for 5 or 6 years now. Nobody has talked about one-to-one videos. I am so
Wow.
one-to-one video messaging. I am really, really grateful for you for this, because it's kind of
Good.
blowing my mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things too. It's like, this is why I like, within our school, like I get to focus 100% on video. My job is to learn about video and all the different ways to use it, and kind of be as much of an expert as I can. And it's an incredibly broad category. I mean,
Sure.
there's so many different kinds of video. But yeah, I mean, that was one thing that I've still been. I mean, the companies that make these tools, like just to name a few, like Bomb, Dub,
Loom. Yeah.
Vidyard, Loom, right? They they
Yeah.
all kind of do similar things now. I mean, they talk about this stuff. Obviously, some of these companies have written books and whatnot. But I don't know if it's just that people just hear that as, hey, you're just trying to sell your product, and so they tune it out, or what. But when I'm listening to it and I'm trying some of the stuff and I'm talking to some of these power users, I mean, it's a no brainer. So a lot of the folks that I've seen that get into a habit, hey, I did this for 3 weeks. I am never turning back. I will never stop using this tool. Like, my clients are all understanding me better. My customer service has improved drastically. I'm getting more referrals. I'm getting more repeat business. It's just, it impacts everything. And here we are, and everybody's still talking about TikTok and YouTube and all this other stuff. And it's not, it's like, I think we get stuck in this whole, one or the other type of mentality. It's not that you don't ever do those things. There's just so much more benefit to be had in the short term, especially from this much more intimate, much higher touch kind of experience. And so as soon as, yeah, I mean, we actually, as we started to understand more of this, we sort of created our curriculum in our school to focus on it. I mean, we sort of redeveloped our entire process, and we said, look, you start with video messages. We actually have sort of 4 strategies we recommend people implement. So they start with video messages. They get that, make that a regular part of how you talk to people, to the point where it's like you just can't help but reply by video when it's appropriate. Then you start to incorporate video, basically sort of scale yourself with video now. So this is like your FAQs, like training for employees if you tend to have employees on the team, things where you're saying the same thing more than once in a several month long period, right? And so then that at that point, then those videos are not as intimidating. It's not as hard to make them because you have all this experience on camera now. And then it's like, so then the third one is build a video marketing funnel, something that you control, that's designed, that you can sort of predict the outcome from, that you can put people in at the top and expect a certain amount of results to come out the bottom. And then once all that is in place, that's when we recommend doing the social media stuff. And if you do it that
Wow.
way, then all that new attention you generate from, hopefully, cross your fingers, getting, going viral on social media, then all that attention, which by the way is more likely because you're good on camera, you know how to make a good video at this point. That drives those people into a system, right? So then they hit your marketing funnel, they get nurtured by that automatically. They come in, you're using video to convert the leads, so you're continuing to see you. It's like it's always been kind of weird to me that we have these folks out there that have all this video from a marketing perspective, running video ads or doing social media video. and then somebody comes into their system and they stop seeing them on camera. How all of a sudden everything's just text and email. And I'm always just kind of like, isn't that kind of weird? Like, they already know you at this point. They've seen you on camera all these times, and all of a sudden the communication becomes less personal feeling. Like, that's kind of
Interesting.
disorienting. So I think we do it
Yeah.
the other way around. It just continues to feel like I'm just getting to know this person that much more. And yeah, I mean, I just the efficiency of this stuff, getting to a point where by the time that person calls you and they say, okay, I'm ready to sell my house, like, they're well educated, they've been watching you. I mean, we hear examples all the time, people talking about like the father-in-law disrupting a transaction or something. It's like, well, now you can educate people ahead of time before they ever even contact you, and they can forward those videos to their relative and say, hey, you're wrong. Stop trying to tell me all this stuff. But yeah, there's so many different ways that this has an impact. And I think if you go in that order, if you sort of start with the simpler stuff that's more direct, and then you build to the more public facing stuff, I think it just works more cohesively. It makes a lot more sense to your customers, right?
It does, and it's really a quite a shift of process. If you're
Oh
going
yeah.
to really think, so you start with the easy, quick video messages, the one-to-one celebratory stuff, or the
Right.
anniversary, things that are easy, quick, and you can just do daily. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, but all those kind of happy home anniversary, whatever. You do
Right.
those, and just a really quick procedural question,
Hmm.
because I'd love to get your thoughts. So you had
Sure.
mentioned, like, you go to Facebook, you see here's 5 people's birthdays today, you make 5 videos. Are you sending them the video via Facebook Messenger, which is, you said, you could do, or are you texting it to them so that it's been my experience that people open texts more often
Hmm.
than like Facebook Messenger, but curious on what you might suggest for like a happy birthday video.
Yeah, I think you're looking in that situation at a trade-off between convenience versus impact, right? So I think
Mhm.
if number one, I don't have the phone numbers of a lot of my Facebook friends, so because of
Sure.
that, I just have to send it as a message. That's kind of the
Right.
first question: is what do you have in terms of contact info? I also, because it's so fluid, and I have all kinds of qualms with Facebook, but not to get into that. Some of the stuff they do is really effective, right? So the birthday things, I mean, that's been one of their home runs from basically day one, right? They got everybody give them their birthday, and that's been one of the things that keeps people engaged on the platform. The fluidity of basically looking at the list, clicking. I mean, and if you're listening to this, like, try this sometime. You'll see how fluid it is, right? It's like you go in, there's the messenger button, you click it, you click the button for the video, camera turns on, you hold it down, you record, you hit send. I mean, and then you literally just hit the back button 2 or 3 times and you're back on the list, right? So so I'm always looking to kind of like, if I tell somebody to do it certain ways, like, are they going to do it? That's
Right.
obviously a challenge you run to with coaching quite a bit, right? So that's the first thing I would say. Now, you are right though, which is that people are going to be more likely to see the text message, right? So I think the way I would sort of think about it is like, if you have a core group, so you've got maybe like those 20, 30, 40 people that are like, they're the ones that pass you the referrals. They're the ones that are repeat customers, the ones you really want to stay, 100% in front of. That might be worth sending them a text, and then even following up if you don't hear anything back from them, just 100% sort of certain that they're going to get it. Everybody else, I think just doing it through Facebook is probably fine. Mostly because it is just so easy to do, and
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to build a habit because of that. So I could set an alarm on my phone for 9 a.m. every day. It goes off. I go to Facebook, boom, send my 5 or 10 messages, and I'm done. So I would say, think of it that way, right? What's going to be sort of the most, what are you going to be able to execute on regularly?
And I also, that's a great answer. And I also love the idea, sort of jumping ahead a bit, to having these sort of intro videos as well. So
Hmm.
now that you're going to be doing this regular happy birthday, happy anniversary kind of event focused videos, you can
Right.
also then create longer form videos that can be reused. So hey,
Yeah.
here are 10 questions that first time home buyers tend to
Hmm.
ask. I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to send you this video, which will maybe answer some of your questions so I don't waste your time later on.
Right.
You sort of, I guess you package it around, this is to help you and us, be more efficient or effective and provide value along the way. Is, hey, I made this little
Right.
5-10 minute video, which is, here's some pitfalls to avoid,
Mhm.
or whatever, or here's how to prepare for our meeting, or here's how the process works. It could really be anything that a realtor has found that their clients continually ask about. So that could be like
Oh,
the
yeah.
basis for, how do I come up with these videos? Like, what's the content? Think about the
Right.
questions you're most commonly asked. And then you can make videos about that and say, hey, I'm going to send this to you ahead of time. And yeah, I'm always available. You can call me anytime, of course, too. But I want to sort of start leading you down a path and providing content to you that's relevant and valuable, instead of you having to ask me. I'm going to be
Right.
pushing this to you proactively.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. I mean, that's where, you know, it's a shame because I feel like a lot of times in these sort of business contexts, you have to talk about doing something from almost always from the standpoint of making more money or growing your business, right? Like that's the hook, right? But it's a little bit too bad because video is so effective for customer service, and I'd love to be talking more about that. And there are obviously a lot of agents that care about that, but that's the place where of all the impacts it has, and there's I mean, you can double and triple lead conversion. I mean, just the numbers, in terms of what video does are kind of mind blowing. But the customer service part is really crazy to me because you can preempt. I mean, you can give people an experience where they feel like you're reading their mind, right? Because you know what they're going to ask, you know what the processes are, you know where the sticking points in a real estate transaction are going to be, and this can all be automated. I mean, so it's this incredible experience where somebody comes in and every couple days or whatever the right touch frequency is, they're getting, hey, by the way, the next thing that's going to happen is this, and here's me explaining it to you. And video allows you to show versus just tell. So you
Yeah.
can talk about, we're going to fill out this document. Here it is. Here's what it looks like. Here's where you're going to put this information. This is why you need to have this number figured out, because it's going to go here in this document. I mean, the sense of clarity that creates for people is immense, and you cannot do it. I mean, it's almost one of those things where you can't even really do it in person. I mean, you can make a video that has like multiple different clips in it that cuts from one kind of piece of paper to another. This is obviously getting a little more advanced, but you can design it in such a way that it actually explains things in a way that's more fluid and more easy to understand than even if you were sitting in front of that person and showing them the papers. So I think when you do that, this is the kind of thing that then people come in the door, they come in as a lead, or maybe they become a customer, they start getting this communication, but it is you. And I think that's the part a lot of folks overlook, is like, they're not just getting an email with this text in it that could have been written by anybody. They're actually listening to you. They're watching you. They're, as far as their brain knows, they're sitting there across the table from you while you explain all of this to them. So it's building the relationship. So you're helping them. They appreciate that. You're informing them this is the smoothest real estate transaction they've ever been involved in, but they're also getting to know you. And so it's almost, and I'll tell you, I experience this myself all the time now. It's a little weird then when you meet that person, because they know you. There's it's called a parasocial relationship. They already have a relationship with you. As far as their brain knows, they've talked to you several times already, and that's all going to be there. So once you do that on a regular basis for a few months, like don't be surprised that a lot of these folks come in and they're much friendlier, they're much more comfortable. They're not at all considering working with another agent anymore. Like, they've already hired you in their head. And just talk about, I mean, you're going to find a better fit. You're going to have more of the right people choose to hire you. You're going to have higher lead conversion. Transactions are going to be a lot smoother. I mean, just so many different things. And then one additional part I'll just sort of throw into there is, I really like, these are all pre-recorded, right? So that's great. Tell people about the process. But if you ever run into something that's especially like frustrating or has a lot of emotion to it, that's where you really want to use video, right? So if you're going to share bad news, like, oh, they didn't accept the offer, that sort of thing, record a video message, because the empathy is substantially higher on video, right? So they can, so even phone calls, you could call somebody, but them watching your face and seeing your facial expressions and being able to read that empathy on your face, that does still go much further. So I think that's another place you can incorporate it to really, maximize that sort of sense of, hey, this person has the bases covered. They're totally in control. I can trust them completely. And that, I mean, just in terms of the enjoyability, so to speak, of the process and working with your customers, it really helps.
Wow. I mean, we're almost talking a little bit of kind of a mini revolution here in communication, like
Oh
change, right?
yeah.
Like we're really talking about one-to-one video communication, whether it's pre-recorded or live. There is something that activates and lights up our brain, and makes us feel connected to the other
Hmm.
person. And through repetition, whether it's pre-recorded or live, the brain starts to sort of build these neural pathways of familiarity. So all
Yeah.
of a sudden we're like, oh, I know Nick. I see Nick all
Hmm.
the time. He's familiar to me, which familiar
Right.
means comfortable, which means non-threatening, which
Yep.
is typically a gateway to the ability to sell somebody something, right? So
Right.
trust, we're now talking about, know, like, and trust. And i
Hmm.
i think you're really on the cusp of this, and agents that can start to move away from the, and not that there's anything wrong with texting if that's appropriate for a relationship, great, but you can pepper in, like, I love the idea of the bad news video message. So let's
Hmm.
do a real, like, a use case example. So I'm a realtor, my client loses this bid that they put in, this offer to
Right.
buy a home. I have to give them bad news. Now, would you recommend I do that live video? Would you recommend a pre-recorded video? What do you think is? And again, it could be anything. Every
Right.
relationship's different. But what's a general rule of thumb on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one's going to depend on the customer a little bit. I think it depends on sort of, the question. The difference between those two is that when you try to get on like a video chat with them, you're interrupting them, so it's like a
Yeah,
phone call. That's one of the
right.
disadvantages of phone calls. They have to
Sure.
answer, and you're disrupting their day.
And
But
they might not be in a place where physically they want to be
right.
seen.
Yeah, they might not wanna be on camera, they might not feel, so but that being said, depending on the type of client, like, they might prefer that because they wanna ask questions. They wanna, they
Sure.
wanna be able to dig in a little bit on it. On the other hand, if you pre-record it, they can watch it at any time. You can be succinct, you can get straight to the point, you can get right to the news right off the bat. So it really just depends on how the previous communication has been going, right? So I think the thing to look at there is like, is this somebody who calls you? Do they like having a lot
Mhm.
of conversations on the phone? Have you done Zoom meetings with them? In that case, I would say, hey, would you mind hopping on Zoom for a couple minutes? I want to give you an update on the situation here, right?
Sure.
And again, that's one where you want to get to it quick because you don't want them, waiting for hours to get that info. On the other hand, if it's somebody who's been doing a lot of texting with you or things like email, which are, we call it asynchronous, right? So it's something you
Sure.
can watch at any time. It doesn't have to happen right at that moment. Then a pre-recorded message is probably going to be better for them.
I love that too. And at the end of a pre-recorded message, you can always say, "I'm going to call you in a couple
Right.
hours, to just to
Sure.
check in on you as well." But I didn't want to wait for this. I didn't want to wait a couple hours. So I wanted to get this information over to you immediately.
Yep.
Um, that is that's huge.
Hmm.
All of this is huge. I guess at the end of the day, it demonstrates care, concern, effort. Whether it's
Yeah.
warranted or not is another conversation. Meaning, for some reason, our our physicality, our the way that we are built as humans, we just like that. We just like getting one-on-one videos. I mean, it's
All
just
right.
kind of how we're wired. So if forget about anything other than it used to be, it felt good to get, and it still does, feels good to get a handwritten letter. Those
Oh,
are
sure.
pretty much done now, although I still think that that is an amazing thing. But what's taken its
Oh, yeah.
place is these one-to-one videos, I think. And they're still very rare. So if you can make
Right.
a one-to-one video process, again, start with birthdays, start with
Hmm.
home anniversaries, start with, I hope your kids are doing well when they're going back to school this fall, whatever. It could be it's your kid's birthday, happy birthday, whatever. You need to get this
Right.
information, put it in, and you can do those all day long. And even if you just did that, if nothing else, if all you did was birthdays and any other, life event stuff that, I bet you'd get business just from doing that. And obviously
Yeah.
that's like 1% of what you could
Right.
actually do. And to learn the other 99%, that is what Nick and his company is going to teach you. So Nick, tell us about the service and what it entails and why our listeners should be checking it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing to understand about Business Video School is, it's a school for real estate agents. It's about 95% of our students are real estate agents. And we teach pretty much all aspects of video. Now, I will say we're not for the video expert. So if you've been making video for 5 years and you've already got a YouTube channel with hundreds or thousands of followers, that kind of stuff, like, there's people to help you, and we certainly could, but that's not who we're built for. We're built for the beginner. So beginner and intermediate, right? So folks that are having trouble making your first video, or maybe you've made a few, but it hasn't become a habit. Everything we do is about building video habits, right? So just, kind of a quick overview of what we have included. There's a lot. So you don't kind of come in and try to take it all at once, but we've got 9 different courses, some of which we teach live on a monthly or quarterly basis. We have something we call video recipes, which is a script, an example of us doing the video ourselves. So you can imitate our delivery style. It's all the instructions on how to make it. It's the social media posts. It's any sort of assets like music that might go in the video. So it's basically all the ingredients you need to make a video. We make a new one of those every week. And then we do things, a lot of fun stuff. Like we have challenges every month. We split up into teams, kind of compete to make different themed videos. We have Q&A sessions, live Q&As you can come on to if you ever get stuck. And then a community, and I think the community is a big part of it. It's just a bunch of folks that are it's very much no judgment, so there's a lot of folks sharing, this is my first video I ever made, what do you think? And obviously there's lots of things they could improve, but we're just there to encourage them when they're first getting started, obviously. So I think that's really what you got to look at, is that video, it's a form of communication, and it is going to take some time to really start to understand and implement fully. So we work with folks sort of incrementally speaking. So you can come in, you take a class or two, you work on implementing, you come in with your Q&As when you need them. And that's why we set it up as a membership, because we felt like, hey, it'd be nice if it's not just a course. You don't just buy something and it sits on your computer and you got nobody to talk to. Like, we wanted to have that community. We wanted to have the support, the ability to come in and kind of get your questions answered. And that's what it comes down to, so if video is a concern, if it's something that you want to do more with, I strongly recommend you come check us out. I mean, obviously it's one of those things that the sooner you do it, the more benefit you're going to get. Because it is only increasing. More and more people are doing this stuff every day. So I think we did create a coupon code. So if you're listening and you want to save 10%, just use the code Keep It Real when you're checking out, and you'll save 10% on your monthly membership.
Yeah, so everyone, please go visit bizvideoschool.com, BIZ videoschool.com. Link to that in the show notes. Use the coupon code Keep It Real and get 10% off on the monthly membership, which, guys, it's less than $100 a month. And imagine if it just, for a year, what's that? We'll say it's $1,200. It's less than that,
Right.
actually. Let's just say it helps you get one additional deal. What's that on average?
Right.
Maybe $7,000 of commission. So I'd spend $1,000 to make $7,000. Guys, please do this. Video is what people are. There's a little bit of a desert of the last 3 years of interpersonal communication, intimacy, physical interactions. Right? We even now we are still recovering from this lack of in-person stuff. Video is
Right.
the closest thing we have to simulating real life interactions. It works way better than text and email and other even voice messages. So please consider doing this. You don't have to have a big production studio. You don't have to have special lighting. You just have to be willing to start this process. But let the guys at Biz Video School, Nick and his team, help you do this. We're big fans. The Biz Video School has been around for a while. They are huge. Lab Coat Agents is a big fan of you guys. They're the largest online community for Facebook. So I know that this is definitely a great service. So I encourage everyone out there to check it out. bizvideoschool.com. Use promo code Keep It Real. Well, this is perfect timing. I know Nick is heading off to his next meeting, so we will wrap up this episode. We want to thank Nick on behalf of all of our listeners and our viewers for what you contributed to the show today. Thank you for all of your great content. And also, on behalf of Nick and myself, we want to thank our viewers and listeners for continuing to
Absolutely.
support and listen to support our show. Please tell a friend. Think of one other realtor that could benefit from hearing this great conversation with Nick. Send them over to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. Every episode we've ever done can be streamed right from a browser. And sign up for Nick's bizvideoschool.com. Use promo code Keep It Real, and let's get your video up and running. This is the year to do one-to-one video. Nick, thank you so much for being on the show, and we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.